Everybody, it is Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today I'm going to show you how you can paint this cheerful, amazing, forward-facing sunflower. It's the full flower with a gorgeous, I think this is a peacock moth, but this red butterfly moth. You tell me in the comments below if you're into entomology. I just picked him because he's pretty on the flower. To help me do this is my husband, John.
Hello.
He's going to make sure that as I instruct this lesson, as this tutorial comes out, and I'm explaining a technique or a tool or a color mix, that the camera's pointing at what I'm talking about or zoomed in when it needs to be close up so that you can really see what's going on. These lessons are part of a 30-day painting challenge. If you want to take part, like if you're here just to paint the sunflower, but you want to take part of that. If you're here for Acrylic April, congratulations whenever we find you, August, November, it doesn't really matter whenever you decide to do the 30 paintings. This is one I was really excited to bring to you, regardless of how you found it. I love how it was broken down. I really think you're going to enjoy it. Don't forget that if you check the description, you'll see materials and brushes and that information, but also a direct to the website where there's a traceable and there is a written out instruction set that matches these steps that were time stamped to help you get the best painting out of yourself that you can. Because I believe if I give you enough help, you can do anything. Get your brushes, get your paint, and come back and meet us at the easel right now. We're going to paint this together. So we're back today on an 8x8 surface. We're going to be painting this sunflower. I have the wish and intention on my canvas that it's written very lightly so that it'll vanish into the paint, but that you have peace. Peace for your family, peace for yourself, in your mind, body, and soul. Every way that peace could be impactful in your life. You deserve it. Everyone deserves peace. On the mic is my husband, John.
Hello.
He is also peaceful today and wishing peace for all.
You're introducing me again?
Huh?
You introducing me again?
Am I? I guess I am. Meet John several times. He's great. Over here on the palette so you know where the placement is. I know you saw the materials in the intro, but with phthalo blue, cad red, cad yellow, phthalo green, burnt sienna, dioxazine purple is here, and Mars black is here. These can look similar to your eye when you're watching. So the diox is to the right, and titanium white in the center. We're going to begin by using a roll of tape.
Ooh.
Whole painting is based on this roll of tape. No. So one thing that you can kind of do is sort of center on the surface,
Uh-huh.
something that you can trace in. This is a 3-inch opening, and I'm going to take just that same light watercolor pencil and trace inside here to give myself the center of the flower. You can kind of see that there. It's 3 inches across. It's a circle. You could freehand it. I am just terrible at circles. That's really what it is. Then I'm going to take one of my moppy mop brushes. Aren't these lovely? I'm going to get it lightly damp, as you do. Come over and get some of my phthalo green. And what? Yeah, that's right. Some dioxazine purple. We're going to begin with the crazy color. Actually done right, this can sometimes appear blue to the eye. I did a whole video where I painted a blueberry with these two colors. We use them a lot, actually.
That was a crazy video.
It was a crazy video, and I'm just going to try to make sure that the outer areas are a little bit dark. This is going to be the deep depth of the painting, the deep, deep depth. And it's that first glaze layer. I need a little more water on my brush. Sometimes you get out there and you're like, there's just not enough water, and sometimes you get there and you're like, there's just too much water. You got to find that balance. Just dox, purple, and phthalo green. And you can see it gives us a very dark color. Almost blue. And I can actually push it where it really is dead on blue. We're not going to push it that far today. I'm just going to paint around my circle. So when I come back and put my petals in, they have a nice little circle to meet at. That's what they want. And when I have this all in, I might get a little white on my brush and come through here and dust a little bit of white through here, making some different variant colors. You guys seen that?
Yeah.
Gives it an out of focused kind of feel to it. I don't have to worry too much at the center. I'm going to be painting the petals back white when I put them in. So it's really about creating a nice background that peeks out around the petals. Now I'm going to rinse this out so thoroughly, and I'm going to dry my surface, and when we come back, we're going to do the next layer of the background. So as we come through here, I want to add some more kind of bright yellow greens to the mix. I'm going to get fresh water because that last water will have been quite pigmented.
Mm.
And I'm going to make sure my brush, I'm going to do a double check that my brush is completely rinsed out. It'll be an important part of the mix. I'm going to take a little of my burnt sienna over here and grab some of my just phthalo green and add in a little of my cad yellow. And I'm going to very loosely do little strokes that go down and sometimes across at an angle. I'm not making a pattern. That's not what I'm trying to do at all. I'm creating little pops of green to represent sort of background leaves that are maybe out of focus. And then bits of our blue-gray are showing through, kind of representing the shadow. Now, as I go forward, I'm going to get a lot more yellow into the green. And I'm going to go ahead and get some white into it. And I'm going to use just the edge of the brush, notice that, and just kind of tip that out.
Kind of a highlighted background.
Kind of like little highlights in the background. I'm not painting it solid, right? These are little bits of color, little bits of moment. And then right here, I'm almost dry brushing, aren't I? Allowing what's underneath to show through. All right. That does not look bad. I don't want to like worry myself too much with this work. Rinse your brush out very thoroughly because I'm going to have to come in and paint the petals in with my white paint. That way the yellow is vibrant over them. If you're painting professional, if you're painting student on something like this, you would want to paint those bright yellow spaces white first so they really, really are vibrating to your eye. But let's dry this to do that. We'll come back and I'll show you how to do that. So I have a number 8 filbert here. If you have my cat's tongue from my brush line, it's an okay brush to use here. It's a great brush to use. Not just okay, it's great. But a filbert will work, a bright will work, a round will work. Sometimes many brushes will work for a job. You just want something that gives you nice control and the right kind of edge. I'm going to load up with just white, and I'm going to come to the top, and I'm going to come inside my little circle here a bit on the toe. Press down and let it come to a tip. Press down and let it kind of come to a tip. Let's get a little more paint on here. Petal. Come down directly below here and kind of make one. I'm not perfectly covering everything. That's not the goal. Why the 4 corners, you say? Because sometimes if you create this sort of even space, it will help you place all of your petals easier. It's just a little trick that you can do to not get lost in the petals of your flower. Once I have those in, I can start to fill in and give the flower even some personality where like maybe a petal turns or You know, there's a petal peeking out right here. This also helps me keep from getting petals too long or too short overall, where your flower ends up being lopsided. It's a strategy. And it's okay to have some short petals or petals that peek through or bend in and out, but you don't want like one side of the flower to have really short petals and the other side of the flower have really long petals unless you turn the face of the flower to match the foreshortening of the petals. So this is just a trick for being head on in your flower. So we have a lot of flowers, obviously, for Acrylic April this year, because that's bloom was the topic, right? Bloom. But I also just have a lot of sunflower paintings on my channel. So there's a playlist, and these will be in both the Acrylic April playlist and in the sunflower playlist. Okay, making little petals that kind of come in and stick between. So if you want to have a whole bunch of sunflowers, not only will you get a bunch of them
Many of them.
Acrylic April wise, but you'll get a bunch of them just generally. And fun, just kind of getting those out there. This will really help us have just a nice little sunflower for our little moth to land on. So our petals have some personality. They're not perfect, but they're nice radial. Why we call it a sunflower is that radiating yellow petals. Or, you know, if it's like a rustic artisanal sunflower, sometimes they're reds and yellows and oranges. Heritage, that's what they call them, heritage sunflower. This one is like a regular yellow happy sunflower. So that's what we're doing today. I'm going to dry this completely. When we come back, we're going to start to add some color. So let's take a deep breath. Now we're going to start putting in the petals, and we want to talk a little bit about value with yellow. Value with yellow can be really challenging for anyone, and you have some decisions to make for this. If I take black to tone or shade my yellow, I'm going to get a slight green tint or hue to the petal. If I take purple, it will neutralize it and do some interesting grays, but it'll have that interesting purple cast. Or I can take a brown and tone it. And so those are the choices that we're going to make on how to do it. We have a lot of interesting green in the background. So I'm kind of tempted to actually just be a bit of a tonalist about it and use black. And then if it just goes pear-shaped, we'll just switch to purple. One thing we can do to help us make a final decision is to test. So you can take a little bit of your yellow over here.
Yeah.
And get a smidge of your black and go, you know, how would that look? The petal, right? That's actually pretty close to what you would see, right? But if you're concerned and you're like, man, I want to try something else, then you just take a little bit of your yellow over here and get a smidge of your purple. That's also pretty wonderful. So you can kind of see how those give you some darker values to play with. I'm tempted to go purple, John.
I like the purple.
I liked how the purple like grayed out the yellow, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put in my shaded petals first. Then
All right.
I'm gonna come over here and get just a little of my purple. I feel like this leaves it more yellow and less green. And I'm gonna come in and make sure that I've got some petals. That I'm putting in some shaded values. Doesn't mean that I won't be coming back with highlights and pops of yellow. I'm trying to get some shading in here. And come here and put a little bit in there. You know, and in general, I can bring the shading kind of even in with any of my petals. And the reason is that as they attach to the center of the flower, they'll be a little bit darker. Some that are tucked behind might be dark all the way to the tip, and some that are forward might not be. Right, so I think I'll go around and add that grade. If you're not getting the thing to understand, here's what it is like where you hear me like kind of thinking and gearing is at home, your purple and your yellow may not make this nice color because your purple and your yellow might be slightly different than mine. And if that's true, try the black, try the brown. And that's kind of why I demonstrated that experiment to give you guys permission to look at what you've got and go, this is working or this isn't working for me. But you can see that the white underneath has really helped coverage. I know I'm going to come back with the center of my flower here. This layering is going to give me a nice petal, and it's worth coming in and doing this. Now I'm going to rinse out, and when we come back, I'm going to put on another lighter value. So let's add some dimensionality to this still with our nice filbert. I'm going to come here and get it a little bit wet. I've changed my water. I will change my water often in a painting like this, and the reason that I will do it is so that my colors stay crisp. I'm going to add just a smidge of my cad red to this yellow. This leaves me room for a pure yellow and a yellow white to come and be involved in my petals. I'm going to come from the end and kind of paint that in. Let's make some more over here. We'll need an ample amount of it. Coming down. See, adding that yellow in. Just putting that yellow in and starting to brighten the flower.
Yeah.
And it does brighten the flower. Making sure that I'm covering the white as I go. Catching little tips and elements. Starting to give shape and order of layering in petals.
Oh, that's why you're kind of skipping around a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what ones are sitting in front, what ones are being pushed behind. And also, sometimes it helps me find balance to do this. Balance in my painting, balance in my flower. On flowers, you'll find you skip around a bit just to keep that sort of petal balance. And that's good because that means you're starting to use your painting brain. And your painting brain will see the world in a very specific way. Now from here, I do want to dry it and then come in on the next layer. So let's dry it with our hairdryer and we'll come in with the next pop of yellow. I'm going to come in now with a number 4 round, and that's so I can really start getting to some of my detailing. I'm going to use stronger pure yellow and white. All right, so that's what I'm going to be working through is yellow and white and stronger pure yellow to really pop this flower. I'll come from tips and edges and I will start to put in maybe some detailing to the flower itself. Coming around, and I'll really think about it as I go. As you can see, the yellows really layer on each other quite well. If you have student paint, this is an important technique to know because sometimes it's the only way you can get bright, bright colors to work with your paint.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to make those layers.
Sometimes you got to make those layers. And see, I'm capturing the edges there. Little tips here and there.
You really see how those highlights come in.
Yes. And this is a great first painting to work on your yellow on yellow.
Hmm.
Later we'll have, different kind of presentations of that.
Got to have yellow skills.
You got to have green on green skills. You got to have yellow on yellow skills. And sometimes those are really hard to develop because those really require a value sense. Best way to do it is practice. Do a daily painting. Oh wait, we are. Maybe you're here just for the sunflower, but if you're here for acrylic April 2022 and you're painting every day, even if you're doing it in a non 2022 year, because you can do any of these programs any year you want. This is the 4th one. Um, for sure, you can make this work for you. Your time schedule, your life. I'm just putting some petals forward and some petals back. We put the center in, it will really anchor a lot of this stuff.
Mm. Yeah.
As I come back down to where I started, I'm going to get the white and yellow. We'll start here. Kind of putting some ridgy highlights on the petals. Turn that petal a little bit. See if it has a shadow in there and the light highlight, it starts to look like it turned.
Really kind of adds a little character to them. So they're not all just uniform. Like, this petal has some personality.
And they do, they're not just uniform.
I am a unique petal among all the petals on this beautiful flower.
And they are. It's kind of putting those little dimensional moments. And they build up. Some will be brighter. Bring some of that highlight to the outer edge of the petals, some to the inner highlight. Maybe a little brighter yellow there. And again, they'll just layer out lovely. You can always come back in to that shaded value, right? Put some little shaded contrast at the edge of the flower. Now we're going to do something kind of wonderful and crazy. We're going to take a little of our yellow and red together. And just pop in a few places some of that color. Not everywhere.
Yeah.
It's very light. Just touching. Just gives our flowers some dimensionality. All right, let's let that dry and come back with one last highlight value and then we'll be done. So now we're going to go through and find highlights on these petals. We're going to do that with our yellow and our white. It's going to be quite a light color. I may even mist with water my palette. I'm still on my number 4 round. And I'm going to find little moments where a petal is highlighted. Little bits of sun. See how that highlight is a big deal? And it gives those petals just that last little bit of dimensionality. You're not pulling everyone forward, just some. some are still in the background. Pulling it through. Little highlights. See how those petals are starting to
They,
curl?
they really do get dimension.
Starting to curl those petals. Now we have a flower that's super inviting for somebody to come land on. It's a little bit more, right? Than maybe we normally put in, but that's how we get there. That's how we get that sunflower that stops everybody and, looks at your wall and is like, did you do that? That's what I want for you. I want you to have people stop and go, did you do that?
It's a great painting.
I think you're really going to like it. Now, this has to thoroughly dry and we come back. We are going to start to put in the center of our flower. So in the center of a sunflower, it's darkest in the center, and then there's this sort of a fluffier ridge, and the seed pods start here, and then they move out. So we want to get that center in first. I'm going to use a number 10 Raphael brush. That's a hog brush, just to get a kind of scruffy texture. I'm going to take a little bit of my Mars Black and my Burnt Sienna, and I'm going to begin to just think about, at first, that dark center.
The center of the flower.
The center of the flower. And I don't mind that if I dry brush it out and it kind of opens up because there's a whole layering process that we're going to be getting to here. Now I'm going to take my orange, and I haven't rinsed my brush out. Might even bring some of that over here. And I'm going to try very hard to come around and start that outer layer of lightness. I can still see some of my circle from earlier, and it does help me.
Yeah, just a little guide.
Just a little bit, so I don't have an ellipse. Kind of circling that around. You can even get more, yellow and orange into it if I need to. I could always go back into the center again with my black brown, but I haven't rinsed my brush out. Are you noticing this? So my brush isn't really rinsed out. It's just...
Yeah, just has the layers of colors.
So they're all sort of relational to each other. I'm going to rinse out now. And I don't want to dry, but when we come back, I'll show you the next step on the seed pod. So here in the center, the seed pod has a bit of, I don't know how to describe it except sort of a texturing. And I'm actually going to take advantage of my phthalo green and my dot ox purple making that crazy blue, because it's a wonderful gray for the pod. Yeah, it's like a gray blue.
I like that blue.
And I can come in and just very lightly start to imply highlights that might be present here in the center. They're pretty light at first. Hopefully you guys can see it. This is just one value up. And I might add a lot more white. See if I can't bring that in a bit. I think it might need to dry some more, but we're starting to see it. I'm going to rinse out, and I'm going to take my red and my yellow into this area where I had the brown earlier. And I am going to tap up and down. I'm just on the toe of the brush and I'm making a kind of irregular shape. Looking pretty good. But I want to dry so that the next layer pops on the layer that's underneath it. So let's dry it with a hairdryer and we come back and we'll do the finishing layer in the seed pod. I'm going to come back to my number 4 round and I'm going to get it a little bit wet and I'm going to add my white to my green and darks again, right, where I make the blue gray. I'm going to get a lot more white into it. And hopefully we're really going to be able to see this value over what's underneath. And we're going to do an interesting thing. I'm going to come here and make kind of a little spiral.
That's cool. You know, I've only seen sunflowers in the wild from kind of afar. I've never really been up on one.
I'm almost dry brushing on this lower edge. Never like really just gotten on it and been like, what's going on here?
No, I mean, like, I don't think I've actually seen, like, in person held a fully blooming sunflower.
Okay, I feel like we have to fix that now.
I think so. I just realized I don't know what that looks like in the inside. Like, I've seen them from afar, from like on the side of the road as you drive by them, but I've never picked one and like played with it.
Never just gotten into it.
Well, because they were all on somebody's land, and I always thought they were so pretty just standing there. I never wanted to cut one down.
Well, yeah, and you don't want to go on someone's land and cut down a flower. I did a little black dashing down here, and I might come in with just a slightly darker purple kind of over this. I want the spiral to be here. They do grow in a spiral, and I think it helps the flower look like what it is. We're going to let that have its little moment there. And now I'm going to come to the outside edge, and I'm going to make a very bright orange, right? A very yellow orange. A shade or two lighter than what was there. I'm going to add little dots. If I wanted to, I could probably do a dotting tool, but this will work just fine. Look at this go, and that's kind of wonderful. You can see why somebody would stop here. It's so full of pollen.
Yeah.
That's what all this would be. It's the little bits and around the outer sides of the seed that have pollen. And then they have like this bright sort of polleny middle. It's very attracting that we'll get in there. It's really a rather fun flower to observe. And then there's so many varietals of it and how they all kind of relate to each other. I think that's one of the things I'm getting out of this year's Acrylic April is just really sort of the observation of flowers and how they are same or different, what's consistent, what do we see a lot of, and what's unexpected or unusual. When you start to see that, then you can start to even, paint almost from imagination flowers because you're like, you get this sense of, well, I know what is core to flower. Flower core. Add a little white and yellow. And come here to the center and add that little bright pollen row. What an involved flower, huh?
Yeah. Very nice flower.
Want to have a like whoa moment? I take a little of my blue and a little of my white. A little phthalo green. Make really strong turquoise. Just a little bit on the seed pod. It's just one of those colors. You put a little turquoise on your sunflower. It's like, woohoo, something happened there. Let's dry this thoroughly and we'll come back and we'll start to put in our visiting pollinator. So we have a little visiting pollinator right here, and I've got to create some shading and some value and some different things just to make everything feel like it's there. I'm going to start again with my number 4 round, and let's begin with black and brown, right? And think about where he's at. So if he's coming across here, that's his little body. It's about a 1-inch little line. And come in and paint the width of the thorax. And a little miniature almond. So I don't know that that's the right word for that part of the moth. Sorry if I confused anybody.
I don't know about moth parts, so I can't help.
Totally okay for the internet to correct me on that one. I'll tell you that right now. And then I'm going to come here and get a little bit of my, believe it or not, black and red. From either side and make a little curved stroke. One sort of a little longer one out there. Here we go. What do you think of that, John?
I think it's pretty cool.
Think it's cool?
Yeah.
All right, now I'm going to turn this just for my sanity because to capture the edge where I have that one little point out, I kind of need to see that I've done that. And then I can make them match, but I just want to make sure that I get that little ruffling that is required. A little point out in, a little point out in, and then, you know, he's got little round lower wings. So nice sort of beginning shape to that butterfly. While I'm here, I'm going to want to take some red and black and kind of thin down with maybe some water. And sort of glaze this far side of the sunflower. This is a very light effect. You've got to have control over your paint to do this. You've got to have a thin color layer. And see, it's very thinned with water.
Just really, really light, huh?
Yeah, it's just a very, very light little bit of water there. And then on the inside of the seed pod, we'd want a little bit of a shadow there too. And coming back, and I'm sort of dotting in a slightly darker, more considered. See how that creates some dimensionality? And I'm putting a little bit under that wing because guess what? Butterflies also, or moths, I think this is actually technically a moth, they cast shadows themselves. So you want to make sure that a bit of that is going on. Can exaggerate that a little bit. Let's dry this, and then we'll do the next layer. So we get to come in and start doing some design. I'm going to stay on my number 4 round just to have a little bit of control. And I'll begin with my black. And I'm going to make sure that I've come along the edge here. And I'm just tapping up and down, creating a little uneven black trim. See my little black trim? Kind of like a little black dress.
I see it.
He's got a little black trim. Along the little front here. And also some little black trim. Now the little black trim this side could be harder to see. Right? But that's okay because there is this other layer that's coming in that will help us highlight that little wing over that dark spot. Trying to make sure that that's kind of even peasing. I don't know. I'm going to get back into my shadow color for the flower and add a bit of white to it. So that was the cad yellow and a little diox purple. I'm adding a little white to it. Adding a little bit of a highlight there on the inner lip of that wing. Now, interestingly enough, this wing kind of feels like it has this even on the outer edge. And that works because that helps us see him over the petal. Making sure my wings look. Sometimes I have to do that where I'm like, are you symmetrical as I would like? I can always come back with black. And trim things. So we're okay. All right, that's looking pretty good. Let's add some zhuzh.
Zhuzh, zhuzh.
Right, and take a little bit of my orange. Gonna make 2 little spots right there. Couple little spots. And then there's a little bit of a inside spot. And a little bit of dotting. That needs a dry, and while that's having a dry, I can come get some of my red. Just put some red on that little flutterfly there. Let him go. I think this is called a peacock moth or something.
That's interesting.
But if, bug lovers, if I'm wrong, correct me. There we go, getting some wonderful red on there. Now let's dry this and come back and do some more details. More colorful and wonderful details to Mr. Caterpillar or Peacock Moth, like technically. I'm going to get a little bit of my phthalo blue and white. I'm going to come right here. Make sure we have some of that nice iridescence. Come over here. I'm gonna wipe out. I'm gonna get a little red and come above this wing. Sort of balance them out. See what I'm doing there? Now we'll get into our black and brown again. The dark markings, the white markings, all these little markings, they're important. They're often how, these guys tell birds, don't eat me.
Yeah.
It won't go well for your tummy.
Look deep into my 30 eyes.
This isn't your day. Maybe a little more white here. Nice a little dotting or little highlights will help a wing show up. I get a little red and yellow. Gonna brighten the red a bit. Just some dimensionality. Well, all that's having to dry, guess what? I'm gonna take my brown and my orange together. Get a little more red into it. I don't want a lot of moisture in the brush, so I'm wiping off on a paper towel. A little white into that. Just highlighting his little fursies. Right? He's got little fursies to highlight and highlight his little thorax over here. No, I don't know which part that is. The little butt. His butt. There's the front bits and his butt. Gotta take care of both parts. Getting a little more white over than that.
Very complicated little moth.
He's got a lot going on, but he's doable, right? He's doable. Gonna get some white. So what's happening is sometimes when you rinse out your brush, a hidden water drop gets up there and it just makes it hard to do a dry brush. Round brushes are always sort of like dangerous in this way. A little bit of lines for the antennae. Come back and there it's doing it again. Holds too much water.
Oh, I see.
So for the antennae to really show, you really need a shadow.
To give them that contrast.
Yeah, to let them have that little bit of highlight. And kind of highlight that front of that wing a bit. Little bits of Maybe reflection. And a little bit going down the thorax. Just little touches. Little touchy touches. And that's how we get the little tail to sort of show up above the shadow. Highlight it, touching up and down. So you can see he's got a little shadow under him. There's a little shadow under the sunflower. It's working. Tapping it out. So it's very glazy. And that's okay to do. Look at that. Now he's got a shadow and the sunflower has a shadow and it's got all the stuff going on. You gotta love it. Right? You gotta just kind of enjoy that very much. I think we're ready to give it a signature, John.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like it.
I like it too. I'm gonna go ahead and take my #1 monogram liner. Put my little mark on it, and when we come back, I'll tell you guys what's next. So sometimes when I'm doing a painting, I sign it, I look at it, and then I think, oh, you needed to do 5 more things.
Had more to do.
So this is sort of a PS of things that I think I should have done on this. You could stop where we were, but I just feel like I need to add a couple things. So grab your little brushes a minute, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So I'm going to take a little of my yellow. I'm going to come here with my round number 10 hog brush, and I'm going to make sure that this outside edge is maybe not so perfectly round. Where it has some like unevenness to it, both in the shadow and in the little pods. And then coming over to the far side, I want to make sure that I've got maybe just a little more highlight. Perhaps here, coming over that little edge. It's amazing how often I'll get to looking at something and I'm like, oh, you're not quite there yet.
Mm.
I'm still glazing. It's still pretty watery, but I'm just making sure that this is, see how I mean about it's like an irregular shadow? It just makes it look a little more naturalistic. Maybe even adding a little bit right there. How we do? Just makes a little bit of difference. Coming out a little bit of dark through there. And I like it. I'm just glad I did it, you know? And I'm going to take my #4 round and I'm going to get a little of my white. And it's okay if it gets a little blue into it, but it definitely needs to get some white. And I want to make sure that some of those seed pods have a bit more of a highlight. Maybe add a little more yellow to that highlight. It's just a little bit better. And because it's just making me crazy, I'm going to put out a little fluid white acrylic paint. Again, sometimes I'm just like, touches. I needed them. I'm going to get my #1 monogram liner. Make sure that we've got a little bit of light kind of spoken about here. You see how that is?
Yeah.
Maybe coming down here. Like there's a little light that caught it. Remember, we got to do some pollen on the pollinator. Because that number 4 round did not do the job. And that's okay. Sometimes you'll get into a painting and you'll be like, you know what? This is not quite doing what I need it to do. And I need this to pop. And you can see already that this is just popping more. So sometimes it's okay to come back into something and be like, I feel like you've got more. Now I'm starting to feel a little better. Do you see what I mean, Deb?
Mm-hmm. I like the little highlights. They always add so much to the end.
Like perhaps that's just a little poppier. You know, just a little, what is that? There we go. All right. Now I have more stuff for you to do after I had this more stuff for you to do. Well, that was fun. Wasn't it, John?
Oh yeah.
Sorry about the PS at the end, but sometimes you look at a painting and you just think, you're not done yet. And you got to come back and add a little more. Your signature does not mean you can never touch the artwork again.
Mm.
You can go back after it's signed. Oh man, this journey has been amazing. I hope you were holding on okay. You're pacing yourself. You're thinking about sustainability in your art practice. What you can do every day is what benefits you most. When you're ready to go for a whole painting every day, I highly encourage that. But wherever you're at in your journey, you give what you can. If you have to take breaks, you take breaks. I say this more and more every year because I see you guys wanting to give yourself the challenge, but also leveraging a whole lot of pressure. So we got to find that challenge pressure balance. It's
Yeah.
a bit like work life balance. Um, I remember the first time when I did a daily painting, I certainly put a lot of pressure on myself to keep going. But I had years and years and years of art experience behind me. So I had some belief that on the other side of that, a better painting was going to come out of it because I had been doing better paintings at the beginning of it. So I had a lot to guide me. So if this is your first time trying this, be easy. I'd rather you paint every day. And I certainly want you to keep in mind that each painting does not define you as an artist or not. It's the act of painting that defines you as an artist.
Yeah.
If you came for just this one, I loved having you. I hope you'll subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment about what you thought, or if you have any questions. I am here to answer questions. You don't have to do the daily painting, just come and do one. But I do a lot of art lessons, so you might want to hit that subscribe button so you can see some of them. Guys, I just love spending this time with you. It's so healing, it's so restorative. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other. And I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye bye.